Hey, everybody. Oh, my goodness. I'm back. The podcast is back. It's 2024. I'm so excited. Welcome. I've missed you guys so much. Today is our reflection celebration episode. My guest, Heidy Tandy. If you've been with us for any time at all, you know who she is. We do episode every year. Typically it is in December. It's January this year. We do not need any more explanation. I'm just eager for you to jump in with us. 2024 stretches out ahead of us. I'm excited. I'm on my way back health-wise, but I am definitely here to stay to the extent that I know every 2 weeks in podcasts moving forward. So let's jump right in to our conversation with Heidy. Welcome back to the Plant Strong podcast. Good morning, Heidy Tandy. Welcome to the Plant Strong podcast.
Hello, how are we doing, Lisa?
We're good. We're
here.
We're back at it. Look at us. It's amazing. All right, guys. So we are doing our recap and our reflection and kind of celebration episode in January, obviously, instead of December. It's been a year. So we just bumped it because we're not going to miss it. Right?
That's
Heidi?
right.
Never going to miss
That's right.
that. Never
That's what
gonna
we
miss
do.
that. Yep. That's what we do. So we are going to, the purpose of this episode is always, it's fun. We think we're hilarious. Two friends catching up and sharing our thoughts, but it's more than that. We would love for this to be kind of a jumping off point for you in your own reflection time, maybe with friends, hopefully give you some, hopeful things to look forward to in your own life. And maybe you can learn from some things we've learned from without having to go through it on your own.
Good.
And just some great recommends because, we're awesome like that. And we find some really fun stuff. So that is kind of a mishmash of what this episode is. So let's jump in. It's going to have lots of questions and Heidy and I are going to bat it back and forth as to what we're thinking and learning. So what are we celebrating right now, Heidy Tandy? This year for Bloom, which was a thing in the beginning of 2023, we now have a different iteration of supporting women, but we each year would select a theme for the year, and it was delight. And that makes me laugh and smile every time I think about it, because as Annie Downs says, wowie zowie, what a year, what transitions and all the things that are going on. So could God have placed a better theme or focus for our year? I think not. So I've got a couple things that I'm celebrating. First of all, is I'm celebrating all the work that God has done in Stadia's mission to champion women. This has been a big year for that and kind of retooling and revisiting and thinking through and dreaming. So obviously this is a journey, not a destination. Women are no longer bracketed with us out as a separate focus. And yet we will continue to have affinity spaces like this podcast. That's exactly what we're doing here. And I love that. So delight is how we started our intentions for the year. And beautifully, it is how we have continued on through all the changes, in my opinion. I love it. And then on a more micro level, for me personally, I'm celebrating that I really can sense growth and expansion in my capacity for delight and peace. Deep, deep, deep in my core, in spite of all that 2023 held for me. For those of you who may be new, I started 2023 in the emergency room on January 6th and spent the following 8 weeks basically bedridden.
Happy Epiphany.
Exactly. What an epiphany that was.
What an epiphany.
On a journey of figuring out hypothyroidism, I could get up for about 15 minutes max, 2 or 3 times a day. And that was all I had. This was followed by a few glorious months of activity. And then on August 2nd, I got my 4th round of COVID, which only lasted for a few days. No biggie. And then 5 weeks later, I was slammed with vertigo, and I am still training my way through that. The gift in the middle of all this, because I'm not going to say any of that garbage was a gift. I'm not here to find great meaning in all the things. I just think sometimes that's a fool's errand, and I don't think that's what God has tasked us with doing. But what I have found in the middle of all of it, that is a gift, is that I am believing that God truly delights in me in a way that I have never before. And the security and the comfort of that is beyond description. I've had a lot of time to just sit and think. And my close circle of friends knows when I say a lot of time, like to just sit, that is exactly what I mean. That has been good training for looking for delight in my day to day and my moment to moment. There was a chunk of time in the fall where I could do nothing else, really. Like I couldn't even read, which if you know me, you know my deep feelings for reading. But I was stripped of even that. And so God has infused me with some really beautiful stuff this year, and I am celebrating that. How about you, Heidi?
Yeah, I wish people could see our text messages, Lisa, because
Wow.
it's just a lot of, is today a boat day? Are you on the boat?
Oh.
And I think we've said on the podcast before that my boy loves to FaceTime with Lisa. And there were days where those things just weren't possible.
I know I couldn't even FaceTime with my boy.
And yet here we are.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but you've really navigated some things, Lisa. And so
Mhm.
I've been so impressed with how you've modeled that delight. So I have to say that as we keep going.
You.
So yeah, as we think about the theme for 2023 and delight in all of the changes that have happened in this realm, I'm with you, Lisa, and I am celebrating that we're still here. That this work of empowering women to maximize their roles in starting churches is still happening. I'm still on the Stadia team. You're still on the Stadia team. Like we're doing it. Yes. And while our roles look different, I think the work is happening and expanding in new ways. So as we're in 2024, I'm so excited about the ways that I'm seeing women in all different kinds of roles in starting new churches, seeing them thrive and seeing them get going. And what we've been able to do on our team through this season of exploration, I'm planning our February event, and we have more lead female guides than we do male guides. We've got women leading teams and on stage, leading in the ways that God has gifted them. And I'm so excited about what's to come, even though it looks different. And that's obviously a change. We want to acknowledge that, but I am excited about what's to come. So, personally, I am celebrating a year of lots of learning. I learned lots of different things about myself in a year that I turned 40. What I haven't learned is what I do with 40. I'm 4 months in and I still don't know how to feel about it, but it's okay. But there's lots of things that I learned this year, about myself, about things that I've always done that I don't want to do anymore, or things that I've not done that I want to try. And I'm just really excited for some things that I've learned. One of them is, and it's so frustrating, but I feel so much better when I drink water, Lisa. I drank more water in 2023 than I did probably in the last 10 years combined.
Prior to,
not even joking. Not even joking. Yeah, I did get on the Stanley Cup trend. I have a Stanley Cup.
Hilarious.
I also
we need to see the proof of that.
I know.
Sorry,
well, right now I have 2 cups. I have a Yeti that I got for Christmas like 3 years ago, and then I have my Stanley that I got for Christmas 2 years ago.
Amazing.
And that's my rotation. And yeah, it was not an everyday habit, but as we have started a new year, I'm like, I do feel so much better with that. So, water. I'm celebrating water. Can we do that, Lisa?
Hey, we 100% can celebrate water. I mean, not to make it super serious, but there's a whole ton of people that do not have access to that. And so it is really good to acknowledge that how much it makes a difference. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
Love
And
it.
also, I mean, I have coffee in my hand right now
Of
as we
course.
talk. So
Also
there
includes
we go.
water. You
Also,
cannot
you
make coffee
cannot
without
make it
water.
without
So
water.
don't
There we
even
go.
start with me. Yes,
There we go.
exactly.
So that kind of gets us to our next question, Lisa, about what's working well. So I'm celebrating and also acknowledging that water is working well. What's working well for you, even after a year like 2023?
Yeah. Here's what's working well for me. That sounds so cliche, January, but it's just true. Y'all, being active and lifting weights. I could talk for days, but I'm going to keep it limited. There is such an underappreciated and uneducated bit about how literally everything in our mind and body connects to movement. And I have spent 4 months nonstop being trained by my physical therapist because, side note, if you do have vertigo or someone you love, find yourself a physical therapist who does vestibular therapy. Write this down, folks, because you're not going to hear it very many places. It took me weeks of going to doctors before anybody recommended it. And that has been hands down the only thing that's made me better. So, but I have been like I played sports in school. Like it's not like I was not a person who knew advantages of being active and all the things, but my adult life since school, no consistency, discipline in that area, just abysmal. And I kind of got away with it, like whatever didn't really impact me negatively, I thought. And I'm certainly not saying any of this would have been different had I been working out, because nobody is saying that vertigo avoids those who exercise. But I have recovered in ways, and I'm moving through the world in a different way now. And I still have vertigo, like it's still there. But man, did God know what he was doing when he built our body. And we just really don't. And there are a million conversations about this that you can check out. It's not new information. That's the thing. It's not new information to any of us. We've been around long enough that information is flooding our news feeds, our books we read, our internet spaces about the mind body activity connection. But it is like there are nerves and cellular level stuff that is actually changed with movement and activity. So take that and do with it what you will, but the data is wild and you can do your own research, but just move. Like just move. It can be as simple as every hour getting up and walking around, doing something for 5 minutes. I mean, that is another, like my therapist specifically told me, that can do as much as some more strenuous activity once a day, like one big burst. So take from this what you will, but I encourage you to get moving.
Yeah, I think a question here that I have been thinking about in terms of my body and how I'm processing where I am is what works for me right now in this season.
Yes.
And that often I think, and I'm going to talk about this later in the episode, often I think so much in black and white, like what I did so and so X years ago, I should still be able to do, and you might be able to, but what works in this season with your life factors? When my kids were little, I was so physically exhausted that it, like anything that felt incredibly strenuous put me over the edge because I felt like everything was strenuous.
Yep.
And so what would it look like, for me to have peace in how I move my body in that season?
Right.
And now my kids are in school. And so I am during the day, if I work virtually, I can be sitting a lot. So that's what I'm asking God, like, what does it look like to move today? Without shame, without any of the things that I think as women, we bring with us in our bags.
Yep.
Bags of baggage. But yeah, what does that look like today in this season?
Yeah. And 2 things to add on to the end of that for me that I mentioned. One thing is a funny thing. I meant to say it at the very beginning when you're talking about 40s and figuring out what to do with that. I turned 50. Guess what I got yesterday? My shingles shot. Can we just for a moment, guys, my shingles shot, I am that age.
You got it.
Like, no offense to all the ladies who are killing it in their 70s and 80s, but that's what I had a vision for. And I'm not there yet, but yes, I am. So there's that. Get your vaccinations that you need. But also just understanding that it's not what you said was so important. I do want to circle back to that. It's not about guilt. It's not about like some big physical training plan. Like for me at my age, weightlifting is almost more, it's not more important than cardio, but osteoporosis, there's just some things that are kicking in now that I'm 50 that I wouldn't necessarily have thought about. And so I can focus on a few reps of some heavy weights a day. And that might be as beneficial for me as for someone else doing a 40-minute walk. Like it's just doing the work to figure out what in your season, in your space, in what your life looks like. Because there's no reason for a lot of guilt and shame, no shame. So important to know.
I think also, Lisa, this is one thing that you help in our offline life with is just knowing where you stand. And it's very hard to know where you stand if you don't go to regular doctor's appointments or if you don't kind of have those regular rhythms of care, and you get to figure out what that looks like in your with your own perspective on and who you see and all of that. But I mean, there are metrics and things that I mean, it's why you're alive, Lisa. Let's be honest,
100%. Like I would not be here today if I had not done regular annual physical blood work.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. And that's like a simple little thing.
Yeah. And like Joe Saxon said a couple years ago at the Bloom Retreat, we got to get our women's health stuff taken care of. Right. And those things can often go by the wayside in our busy lives in ministry, but there's our TED Talk about regular medical visits. There you go.
That's right. That's right. I love it. So is moving, like, what's going on with you with, what's working well? Like, is that kind of yours is the water? Well, you're celebrating water.
I'm celebrating water. I do think that I am learning what I like. So what's working is I'm learning what I like. And I think there's so much that over the years that I've not acknowledged that, there's certain things that I don't need to waste time on because I know what I like. This is so silly, but I know what pens I like.
Not silly.
I know what pencils I like. I know what curtains I like. I know what
I did.
That is an old school.
It is totally old school, but I kept getting pens that were different. Yep. And I finally figured out the resistance to the paper. There's something, I don't know, there's something back in my brain. I love it.
Yep. This is my pencil, just like a twisty paper.
Go up higher. I can't see that.
Sharp writer.
There it is.
Yep. Ooh. It's a basic little pencil. And I know what I like.
You like a pencil?
I like a pencil in my goal planning and journaling typically. Yeah. And then in my work notebook, I use a blue pen.
Oh, so I like
just learning what I like. Yes. I've talked on this podcast at length about Aldi candles. I know that there are certain things that I like that I want to stick with. Now, I will be honest. I feel like I need to confess to our podcast audience that I did hit the Bath and Body Works sale at Christmas time and got some 3-wick candles. And they are great.
Left your Aldi candles to the side?
I have both. I have both, right. But yes, I like to work with the candlelit. I'm learning what I like. I like black picture frames with the bigger the better with mats. Like and also I know what I like in terms of what doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
There's certain cuts of pants, ladies, that I'm never going to wear. It's not going to work.
Mm.
There's certain, like, right now I'm super into sneakers and I don't see that changing. What makes me
I
feel good?
am
What makes,
here for it. Yes,
like,
yes,
I'm learning what I like and that I don't need to waste time on trying things that
yes,
I don't.
yes.
There we
Oh,
go.
I love it. I am here for that. I think that's awesome. All right, let's do some fun recommendations coming through to you from Heidi and Lisa. These are some of our faves for the year. Now, admittedly, this year for me was a weird one because I went for what does that come out to, like something like almost 6 months of very little reading. I could watch some shows eventually. There was just weird stuff with yeah, like visual tracking. So I cut down on my books tremendously this year, but with by Skye, I think it's Jethani. I
Mhm.
hope I'm pronouncing that right. That is 2011. That is not a new book, but the tagline is reimagining the way you relate to God. Wow. I loved it. And I started it during the time where I couldn't read very much, which was actually such a cool thing because I just devour. I devour books and I really try to make notes and underline, but this forced me because I knew I
Sure.
had a time limit, literally, that my brain, I could only handle printed words for so long. And so that was really cool because it took me months to get through it. And I just love it. I'll never get over it. It will be a reread for me more than likely.
Love it.
Um, let's see here. Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. I've heard several podcasts with him on it. So that is the story of the legendary restaurant 11 Madison Park in New York City. And he was 26 when he came in on the team, and he was like, yeah, he was like co-owner. There's a whole thing. He moved through the ranks. But it is the name Unreasonable Hospitality already just snatched me because the whole concept of hospitality and developing that and fleshing that out more fully, it's such a biblical thing. God, like that's just from the beginning. Hospitality is baked into our DNA. But this is a secular book and it's from a restaurant view. Like it's totally not what you would think going into it, but it talks about how he urges us to find the magic in what we do for ourselves, the people we work with, and the people we serve. And it was just, I loved it. Like I can't say enough good things. So highly recommend that.
I've heard a lot of people mention this book lately. That
It's
book, I've heard it's
it's
incredible.
just it
I can't wait
feels
to read it.
magic. Like
Yeah.
this was a big inspiration year for me, or like needed inspiration. I really needed to be inspired and to be reminded of all the good. And man, that just hit the mark for me. I'm just a big fan. So then my other two recommends are, you mentioned earlier, pants, joggers. Guys, I'm putting a link in our show notes, or no, Carrie's putting a link. Let's be real. They are joggers from Amazon and they have changed my life. I literally ordered 2 more pair. I got 1 pair for Christmas and I followed up with my Christmas money and ordered 2 more pair. They can be dressed up to snappy casual. They can be obviously the total like workout gear, totally on the low end of what you're dressing for. They are like butter. They've got a wide, flat waistband that just fits perfectly. They've got deep pockets. They are fantastic. So you're welcome. And they come in 19 colors. Really? Like, what more could you
That's
ask
a lot
for?
of colors.
Love them. Love them. And then speaking of colors,
There you go.
I am totally cracking up over this, But guys, I had my colors analyzed. I did not pay for you can get a consultant to do it, and I'm all for it. Like, I think that would be a fun splurge to do. I was not in that bracket this year, but I crack myself up because for those of you who lived through it, this is such a 1980s power move. This was such a thing in the 80s.
Amazing.
What season are you? Are you summer? Are you true spring? Are you fall? Are you autumn? But it is so much fun. And I don't know. Everybody can have their own opinion. I think it is incredibly accurate. Like, if you do like, there's endless stuff online, endless stuff. Like, you can find all kinds of free quizzes and like charts to look at. They're right. And it has just given me a fun little thing to do. It gives me an idea when I'm moving forward buying new clothes. Whenever that comes, you're already ready with like what looks best on you. And it's not about somebody telling you what you can and cannot wear. Because at the end of the day, we can wear whatever the color we want to.
Totally.
I'm totally not for boxing you in. But I have found that as I had my shingles vaccine, as I'm aging, there are some nice things to do for yourself that give you a little confidence boost and just kind of remind you, okay, things are changing. Things look different, and that's okay. Here are some ways to feel a little more confident and comfortable in my own skin. So that was just such a fun thing to do. So I highly recommend.
I love it. I need to do one of those free online ones. Yeah. I am a little afraid they're going to tell me that I can't wear black anymore, but I'll probably still wear black. Let's be honest.
For the record, that is not my color, and I threw that out the window because I love black and I think I look great in it. So
okay,
great. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
We needed to cover that today. It's very important. Books this year, a couple. I loved Beth Moore's memoir. It came out in February.
Yes.
And All My Knotted Up Life is the name, even though I've been mostly referring to it as Beth Moore's memoir. You'll laugh, you'll weep.
I read that. I did read that one too.
It was so much. Yeah, just so tender, and loved that one. I also read a book. I read it on vacation, but it was not really a vacation read. It was called She Deserves More by Sheila Gregory. And this book talks a lot about raising daughters and mentoring young women in our life, and what does it look like to raise them now versus 20, 30 years ago, in response to purity culture and a lot of just challenging things for women. And so there was a lot that I got out of that book, even though it's a hard read. My reads that I'm recommending are not like easy peasy reads, but the next thing I will say, this is an easy peasy read. I am super into like beautiful home books. So we've talked about the book Cozy Minimalist Home. She is coming out. McQuillan Smith is coming out with another book in April. Which I'm super excited about. I pre-ordered it because I love her. So that's in the realm of beautiful home books. And so I just like to look on Amazon and see what is related to other books that I've liked and put them on my wish list. I got a couple for Christmas. So super into beautiful home books and magazines. Listen, I know print media is not on the up and up right now. But sometimes I just want to put down my phone and put my fingers through a magazine and see pretty things, like what I like, and get ideas for how I want to do my own home or not do my own home and all of that. So love a home magazine. And then for TV, got to talk about television. We started watching Lego Masters as a family, which is an older show, but there's lots of availability on the TV these days. And we watched American Ninja Warrior when it was so hot this summer and we needed something in the evenings to do. So those are a couple of our shows. None of them are new.
Love it.
But It's where I'm at. It's where I'm at. Sometimes
Yes.
an oldie but a goodie makes
Love
sense.
it.
So
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I do have to make honorable mention of, you said oldie but a goodie. Okay, so at the beginning of my vertigo stuff, like I mean I could not do anything. I was sitting in a chair staring at the wall, and when I finally felt like I think I can watch something at a distance, like I couldn't see something close up, like a laptop screen or a phone, but I could something far enough away. Speaking of 80s, guys, Murder She Wrote. Okay, I have such warm fuzzies with my granny watching that show. And I was like, I think it moves slow enough that I could. So this could be categorized as the year Murder She Wrote saved my life. Like
there you
that could be the
go.
name of my book. But sometimes oldies but goodies are the absolute best. So that is so funny.
I love it.
All
I
right.
love it. Okay.
So we're talking about fun. So what is a moment? Is there a moment that delighted you? Which again, this is for our people to, we want to spur you on to do the same thing. Like time just marches on. And if we don't
Yep.
stop and think back, and sometimes, I mean, I'm going to encourage you to make a note of it. 9 times out of 10, I do not. It's just going to be in my brain. But if you journal, all the better. But what is a fun moment that was a celebration for you, a delightful moment for you?
When we moved into this house 2 years ago, this was not on our wish list. Actually, it was on our, we would prefer to not have a house with this. But ended up buying a house that has a I think it was built in the 60s or 70s, concrete pool. It's an in-ground pool. It's concrete. She's not the prettiest pool. But I don't know. Kids will swim in anything.
Indeed,
Like
they will.
they will swim in any temperature. They will
Yeah.
like this pool isn't the prettiest, but she on the when it's hot in the
She does
summer,
the job.
she does the job.
Yes, she does.
And so we have this pool that we did a lot of physical work on cleaning it up. By we I mean Josh, my husband, power wash it. We painted it, sealed it, tried to make her look pretty.
Yeah.
But when I was thinking about the year, I have so many memories from this summer of
Love that.
whether it's just me and my kids and
Yeah,
just swimming in the pool when I'm done with work,
that's right.
or on the 4th of July, on Labor Day, we had tons of people at our house swimming in our pool.
Yeah.
And so my prayer for this year is one of my goals is, God, help me steward my home well. And that includes this pool. There are much prettier pools in the world, but we sure made a lot of memories in our pool this summer. So it's so funny. The pool also has a leak and we have to fill with our hose sometimes. So,
it's fine. It's fine. She's great.
Also, I love, we are a sports family. And so sports always, like we just love, having people over, having a game on, whether it's in the evening. I do not like hot weather. I don't know if I've said this, but so when it's been really hot all day, like sometimes it's just great to go inside and watch a baseball game. So sports always. Those are my couple. What about you?
I love it. Yeah, well, I have a big, hairy, audacious, fun, big thing that is would not be a typical celebration delight moment, but I acknowledge that there are years and times and seasons that you get big fat surprises. And so this was my big 5-0 in December, and Jeff and my girls surprised me with a trip for all 4 of us to go together to New York City. So we wanted to be there for Christmas, but like Christmas is big with our family. Like we're at home, we're doing all the things, we're cooking a ton. That is very important to our family. So we knew we weren't going to go during the Christmas actual moments. So we left on January 1st, after the chaos of New Year's Eve in New York. And so we got there that night, and we're there for 3 days. And it was just magic. Like it literally makes me choke up to think about it, because none of that is required. Because you turned 50, you don't get to blow a lot of money and points for flying. But we did. We made the choice to do that. My girls they're both in college. Maddie's a senior. It is a bit overwhelming to think of the beauty of this moment in time, that Jeff 100% gets the credit for pushing that forward, because I was like, I don't know if this is such a good idea, even though I was giddy over the excitement over it. I have been laid in bed for 4 months. It felt like too much, but at the same time, I was so eager to make it happen.
Yeah.
And he just slow and steady kept moving forward with the plans. And we just full send. We made it happen, and it was perfect. And trips won't always be perfect. We have taken trips that were not.
Yes.
But this one was. And I make no apologies for that. Like, that is just a beautiful moment in time that our family got. And we're going to celebrate that, and we'll have it forever. And so that was just delightful.
I love that you're saying that it was perfect. I think that's a really interesting way to describe it, because you told me offline that you still were on the boat some.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
And so what a cool perspective that even when it's not, quote, perfect, and there were boat moments that God in his kindness still got to do it. I'm grateful for you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
awesome.
It was fantastic. It was fantastic. So we're going to turn the ship a little bit, and as we kind of get closer to landing the plane today, what's something that God has been working in you this year that you can really point to?
Yeah, if I have a thought in life, I just put it on a Post-it. And so I've got Post-its in my office. I've got Post-its above my sink. And the Post-it that's been above my sink is prayer is daily life with God. And that was something I heard on a podcast with Aaron Moon. And I have just been doing some work around reframing what I should be doing in my relationship with God, and even just in being a person. I just can so quickly go to extremes about what I have to do, what's the most important. And then if everything is important, nothing is important. And so what is daily life with God? What is, talking to God in the car? Which I know that's basic, but what is, washing the dishes? And that's why I keep that above my sink. Like, I'm washing dishes. I'm thinking about like just the everyday moments of connecting with the Lord. And, God is here. The Spirit is here. The Spirit is in me. Jesus is good and kind. And I need that perspective, not just when I'm sitting in my chair in the morning, but as I'm doing the things in life.
So good.
That's my big learning from the year.
I love it. Man, that's fantastic. I'm like, I wrote that down. Prayer is daily life with God. That is just, wow. That's so basic, but
I know.
It's life altering when you really grasp it.
Yeah. I have another Post-it as well. That has been huge too. I wrote this really early on in the year. May my presence here daily suggest your presence here. And that's from Douglas McKelvey's liturgy book. If prayer is daily life with God, then I want like my presence, even in Zoom meetings at my own church and what things that I lead and ways that I serve, may my presence here suggest God's presence here. That's who I want to be.
That is so good. I love it. Wow. Yeah. Good stuff, Heidy Tandy.
What about you?
So for me, the revelation that return to normal is a garbage concept and not at all biblical. That may be a hot take for somebody. I don't know. But guys, what does normal even mean when you think about it? And so now let me be clear. I know when I say, when I say that, what I don't mean, I get it that it is not normal for people to live in constant fear in the midst of war and disease and abuse. Of course, that is truth. And that is like two completely different things that I'm kind of referencing. And we should collectively be working to bring justice to those ills. Like there's no question.
Yep.
But what I'm referencing is my constant battle. And you sitting across the Zoom room from me right now know this almost better than anybody in my life. My constant battle this past year with when will I get back to normal? And that took space, like it's hard for me to even fully explain it. But for days and weeks, that was my normal. Like, what was I trying to get back to? Like, what you wake up to today is your normal for today, period. Like, I don't want that to feel all ephemeral and like philosophical. It just is. Like, today is your normal, period. And so, I hope I'm saying that in a way that makes sense. I would catch myself expending what precious little, and I mean precious little energy I had planning for when things return to normal, or grieving why it's no longer the way it used to be, or wondering, will I ever get back to that, what that normal was? And I give myself grace. And I had plenty of people, you being one of them, in my inner circle who I would express that to, and they would gently remind me, okay, true on a larger scale, but you do need to give yourself space to grieve what at 50 or at 49 you thought your life would look like. That's okay. But I do push back and go, it is okay. And I did process. But if I camp out there, there's just nothing good. Now, if I'm sitting by myself and I didn't reach out to Heidi, or I didn't reach out to Jen, I didn't fess up to Jeff and tell him what was not how I was feeling, how I was really, really feeling. If I wasn't doing that, then that would have been a process that I needed to investigate more. I would need to sit in it longer, but I was doing that. I was expressing it. I was putting it out there. And so there came a point where I was realizing I felt like God was lovingly and very patiently, like not a trace of, how dare you want to go back to something different? Like, never sensed that from God. But what I did sense that he was teaching me was today. It is, here's your normal. Your normal for right now is being in a boat all the stinking time, not being able to read. That's your normal. And even this conversation of a new normal, I don't even love that, because what does that mean? Like, already my normal in January is different than my than what would have been my new normal in October. And so I just feel like it's a fool's errand. It's a waste of time. And I've never had a period of time for this long. Certainly cancer, I was trashed out energy wise, but this has been the longest stint of just a overwhelmingly drastic physical change in my ability to interact with the world, that has helped me recognize that you really do have to budget your energy, both emotionally, mentally, and physically. And a fun little throwback to a podcast we did a long time ago, which we'll put in the notes, where we talked about to Lumar about how your energy in your life, you should budget it just like you do finances. And that is just, I always go back to that episode mentally. It was so powerful. So all that to say, God is teaching me to truly rest in today. That is not a bumper sticker. That is so, so, so real. Knowing that staying deeply connected to him throughout the day is the only thing that is worth my focus and energy. To be clear, that does not mean huddling in prayer all my waking hours. Like, who can do that? The more beautiful way is to invite him into everything I do, my exercising, my work, my connecting with friends and family, my tasks around the house, my errands to run, my watching my favorite Netflix shows, like literally every single thing. He reveals what needs to be done as we go. He doesn't send us a letter informing us what the next 3 months are going to look like. As we go about the things that we're doing, and as we go about it together, he gives me peace. Even when I have to let things go or disappoint people that mean a lot to me. Hello, 2023. Like, I had to do some disappointing. And sometimes it was because it couldn't be avoided. Sometimes I just messed up. I mismanaged my energy, and I let things slip that shouldn't have slipped. Like, I made mistakes. Even in the middle of that, like, allowing him to guide me in my daily every step. And this may smack for those of us who lived through it. The heavy devotional emphasis of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
This may smack a little bit as flippant or just words, but guys, I promise you it is not. That approach to life was right, no matter any baggage that we may have that has traveled with us from those eras. That was truth, and that was a good way to live, and it is restorative and sustaining. To be clear, not always easy, and most definitely does not provide all the answers. I still got vertigo. I still don't know what my next few months will look like. I just don't know. I can't drive. I haven't driven since September. Like, deal. But it does provide answers for the next moment. And his presence is in it, which is everything. Everything. Yeah.
There we go. All right. So what are we leaving behind then? With all that said, what are you leaving behind?
So Miss Emily P. Freeman summed it up beautifully. We have mentioned both those sisters in this one podcast.
That's amazing.
And yeah, that's pretty awesome. She coined it perfectly when she said to stop collecting gurus. Now, I understand the irony of this, as my job is literally to interview people on this podcast who share with us thoughts on life and ministry and how we can implement things that may help us be more effective or be more restorative. But I do believe both can exist. The responsibility is to be hyper intentional about what we welcome into our lives. In other words, what Lisa lets into Lisa's life, what Heidi lets into Heidi's life. Maybe this isn't such a struggle for most. Like, I acknowledge that full on. This may be a me thing. My wiring wants the perfect checklist. I want the authorized version. I was looking for a blue check mark long before the blue check mark ever existed. I want an authorized version of what to do and what not to do in this life to make it optimal. Enneagram 1s, we want it so bad. We want to know. But I know that God is inviting me as a personal practice, not a blanket approach for everyone, to really do some serious gatekeeping in my world, especially in this fantastic online space. I know that I seriously underestimate even simple things like a scroll through Instagram. Like, in 5 minutes of scrolling, I could come in contact with literally dozens of lists that tell me how to better relate to the people that I love. And at the end of that 5 minutes, have I actually increased my capacity to love others, or have I just washed my mind and heart for 5 minutes with you're failing here, all at the same time without those lists acknowledging what my best way of relating, how God wired me to relate. Not all those lists are going to instruct me in that way. And so, why on earth? I'm tired anyway this year. And that just, all that looks like to me is pure exhaustion. Like, let me just introduce 5 solid minutes of ways to feel like I'm failing and wear me out. So, why on earth would I leave a swinging door of my mind wide open to that kind of poison? Again, the things are not poison. It's poison in how I interpret it in my life. I love and am so thankful for the accessibility I have to brilliant minds and thoughtful coaches and beautiful spaces and godly wisdom. That brings me such delight. But in 2024, I am editing down the number of voices who have access to my mind. Rent free no more.
That's good. I knew you were going to talk about that a little bit, and I am so grateful that you did. I'm just going to steal your answer for this one. No, but I think that's a great thing to leave behind. There's so many great voices out there, but we can't. We are not made to handle all of that information all at once. With that said, one other thing I am a voice that I'd like to leave behind is the voice of myself being too hard on myself. I was in a coaching session in December, and this is a shout out to Blessing Ranch. They are amazing. And so I do some coaching with one of Blessing Ranch's coaches. Her name's Brandy. She's amazing. Brandy said, I'm noticing that you have such grace and such like ability to like realize that, relationships aren't perfect and things aren't always black and white, maybe in the church as you walk with people or as in your own life, and things are unfinished and that's okay. She's like, but you don't see yourself that way at all. You are just so hard on yourself. And we talked about that for a while, and man, that's really hard for me, like to be able to offer myself and have my self-talk. I mean, we've talked about those things before, but just really working to not be so black and white, even with myself. I think we've all got yes, no, maybe behaviors, right? That we know are healthy for us. But often, like, what's the thing behind the thing? Like, what's going on that is causing you to feel so extreme about X, Y, and Z? So I'm really working to be kind to Heidy.
I love it.
In 2024. So Lisa, as we close, let's think about 2024, and even with everything that you've navigated, what gives you hope as you lead our podcast endeavors through Stadia and figure out your actual normal, to say that, to call back. What gives you hope this year?
Well, it just sounds trite, but it's Jesus. I mean, he is everything. Like, he's why we want to start new churches, because we want others to taste and see the life with Jesus that we've experienced and that is offered to every person on the planet. I have great hope that small beginnings are enough. That's biblical. Zephaniah, it's either 4:10 or 10:4. I always get it mixed up. It's in the book of Zephaniah.
We trust you.
And it just talks about do not despise the day of small beginnings. And my world has been shrunk so small in many ways this year, and yet it still has the vastness of all of his good works. And that's enough. And I'm just eager to, through the podcast, to offer a moment of reprieve for those tuning in that just reminds them of those truths in whatever capacity that can play out in their life, and just encourages them that it's small movements and moments. And then he controls the outcome of all that. So it can be small, it can be measured and quiet and joyful and delightful. And that's enough.
And that's a message we need all year. We usually say that do this episode around Christmas time, but we need that hope and that reminder that Jesus is everything and is the foundation of what we do. And so thank you for taking us back to it, Lisa.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on today, Heidi.
It's always a privilege. 2024. I'll be on.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Thanks, friend.
Thanks for listening to the Plant Strong podcast. Plant Strong is part of the Stadia podcast network. To find more great podcasts and to see how Stadia can help you start thriving, growing, multiplying churches for the next generation, be sure to check out stadia.org/podcasts.